This is going to be all about taking attendance in Canvas with the attendance tool that is called Roll Call. So some first notes. Attendance in Canvas is also called Roll Call, and that's because it is a LTI tool. It's a plugin or a third-party tool that just kind of comes with Canvas, and not everyone will use it to take attendance necessarily. You may have other ways of counting attendance, such as creating assignments or whatever, but this is just one option for more easily taking attendance in Canvas. But as we'll see, it's very structured, and there isn't necessarily as much flexibility as there was in Moodle. So you may or may not end up using this tool. So we'll see. So that said, it does make taking attendance much easier than having to set up individual assignments. So hopefully you can get a better idea of your needs by the end of this workshop. So another tip is to try doing all of the setup before you start taking lots of attendance. This was true in Moodle as well. It can cause some, not necessarily, it can cause some issues. They're easily fixed, but it's just good practice to sort of at the beginning of every semester get all of your attendance points and setup sort of squared away at the beginning, rather than waiting until, you know, students are looking at grades to get your attendance points and all that squared away. Roll call, or the attendance feature, lets you set 4 statuses for each student for each class: present, absent, late, and unmarked. And those are the terms that Canvas uses. So that means full credit, 0 credit, partial credit, and ungraded or excused. So pretty much you can set the overall point value that attendance will be worth in your gradebook, and that includes no points. If you want to keep attendance but you don't want to grade it, that is an option as well. But pretty much, whereas Moodle kind of let you set as many options as you want, these are your 4, and you only get those 4. You only get one option for partial credit, for example, and you can only really set 1% for that. So, and another weird note is that you have to do this, you have to sort of do a lot of prerequisite things before the attendance tool will fully work and let you set things up. So I'm going to take you through that. So first and foremost, how do we set up attendance in a class? So here I have an attendance, I have a Canvas class set up here that I have loaded up ahead of time. So first and foremost, what I need to do is to turn on the attendance feature by scrolling down and coming over here to settings on the left-hand side. As a reminder, this is pretty much how you turn on any kind of third-party tool. Not any kind, excuse me, most kinds of third-party tools. Now that I'm on the settings page, I want to look for the navigation tab. You might end up here at first in the course details tab. You want to just slide over here and click on navigation. So now you'll notice that these navigation options mirror what I have on the left-hand side. As a reminder, it is great practice to remove as many of these links as you possibly can, unless you're using them with your students. Unless your students have specific instructions to go over here and use these links, I highly recommend hiding as many as possible. As a reminder, the top section shows links that are going to be either turned on or visible to students, and the bottom section shows links that are going to be either turned off or invisible to students. So attendance is one of those things. I've got it right here. You may have it at a different spot. It is turned off by default. So what I want to do to turn it on is to click and drag this from the bottom section to the top section. If clicking and dragging is awkward for you, you can also use these 3 dots and say enable, and that will enable it in 2 clicks for you. So final step, once you have attendance in the top section, is you need to come down here to the bottom and make sure that you save. That's a step that I forget frequently, and therefore you have to redo it if you forget to save. So that is the first part. Notice that I have assignments turned off. So I can see it as the instructor over here, but it is invisible to students. You can see it has this little icon that's an eye with a slash through it. That means students currently cannot see it. I do that on purpose, and that is because I want students to engage with my assignments on the home page, on the modules page, and not through this assignments page. This assignments page is basically just your gradebook setup. There's a reason I have that turned off specifically for using attendance as well, and we will get into that. But that's the first step. So I've got attendance turned on. I'm going to come down and hit save. Just as a note, so attendance does not have an I with a slash through it. However, the Canvas guides tell me that students will not see it. So we can actually test this. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to turn on student view. As a reminder, the student view button is now up here in the top right corner. And when I click on it, I can see my course the way that a student would see it. And yep, as promised, there is no attendance link on the left-hand side. So fear not, students will not be able to use that. I'm going to leave student view by clicking the Leave Student View button at the bottom right. So let's see. Okay, so attendance, students won't see the attendance page, but they will see an assignment in their assignments list, potentially, that says roll call attendance. So that's why I hide the assignments list, because I don't necessarily want students seeing that, and you should not unpublish it. So the next thing we need to do is publish the course. So obviously, in a real course situation, you don't want to do that until you're ready. So like I said, roll call attendance is a little bit weird. It has a few things that have to happen before other things can happen to finish your setup. So the first one is that the course has to be published, and that's just a technical limitation, because if you try to view attendance and your course is not published, there's no students in your course. So the attendance tool cannot find your students, and your student list will be empty. So this part has to happen after the course is published. You also need to take attendance for at least one student. And if you want to, you can take attendance and then undo it. That's another weird technical limitation. It pretty much kind of, it pokes the attendance tool and says, hey, wake up. And it creates an attendance assignment, which is called the roll call attendance assignment. This will appear in two places. It'll appear in your gradebook and in your assignments page. So let me go ahead and do that. I have my course published, as you can see over here. And I'm going to come over here to attendance. And because my course is published, it will have all of my enrolled students in it. As a side note for this one, I put in, well, hopefully attendance decides to work. There we go. A little worried that it was going to be slow today. Okay, as a side note, notice that I put in fake students in this class. Fake students do not have to accept the course invitation in order for this to happen. So if you would like to add Alice Training Wheels, Bender Training Wheels, Molly Training Wheels, Steve Training Wheels, you can totally do that, and you can practice attendance on someone other than your real students. So for our next step, we need to take attendance for one of these students. I'm just going to, let's start at the beginning. To take attendance for these students, all you need to do is click on the little icon. And these icons will also appear if you take the, if you have the Canvas Teacher app, you can take attendance from there as well, which can be handy. Basically, all I need to do is click, and notice that the icon will change. And if I click again, it will change again. And basically, you rotate through each of the 4 attendance options. So here we have excused or unmarked. Here we have present, which is full credit, which is the green checkmark, sorry. We have absent, or 0 credit, which is the red X. And we have late, which is the yellow clock face, I believe that is. And so then if I click again, we have the gray circle with a line through it, and that means that they're excused or it's unmarked. It's basically, it's not going to count this against them. A benefit of the roll call attendance tool is that you do not have to set up your attendance calendar ahead of time. You don't have to enter, these are the days we're supposed to have class ahead of time, the way that you had to with Moodle. Pretty much just leave any day unmarked if you did not have class that day, and students will just be excused. So now that I've done that, I've taken attendance for one student and I rotated all the way through so that I basically undid it, right? So I took attendance and then I undid it. So this Alice should not have any points counted against her. But what I did was I kind of poked it. I poked the tool and said, hey, wake up. Again, it's a weird step, but once I do that, now if I head over to this assignments page on the left-hand side, you will see if I did this right. Here we go. Roll call attendance. This just appeared at the bottom of my assignment group. And this appears automatically, and it will appear automatically for 100 points. Now, what if you don't want attendance to be worth 100 points? What if you use a weighted gradebook? These are all good questions, and you can totally customize all of this. Just again, as a reminder, do not unpublish this. I know that it might be habit or it might be an instinct to say, I don't really want students seeing this, so I'm just going to unpublish it, I'm going to delete it, I'm going to rename it. Please don't. It is tied to the attendance tool, and you will get errors or it'll just recreate it if you delete it. You need to have this tool here. What I would do is keep this on your assignments page, and basically hiding the assignments page will hide this as well from students, but do not unpublish it or rename it. Okay, I'm going to say that again at least one more time. So basically, to set the settings for the grade, I can come in here and I'm going to click on the assignment. Just like this was any other kind of assignment where students are getting points in my gradebook, I'm going to click into it and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say edit assignment settings. Notice that I have my roll call appear here as well. So I'm going to click edit assignment settings, and this is going to give me the standard page that you should probably be used to seeing by now when it comes to setting up items in your gradebook or setting up assignments that are turned in online. So I'm not going to change the name. I'm not going to add a description. We can talk about that a little bit later. What I am going to do is change the points. So I'm going to say, let's make this 10 points, for example. And actually, real quick, so that I can demo something later, I'm going to give Alice full credit. Okay. So I'm going to make this 10 points. You can change which assignment group it appears in. And I'm going to change the display. So by default, attendance is going to display as a % in your gradebook. Okay, so by default, if you don't change this, students are going to see 50% attendance grade, 10% attendance grade, 100% attendance grade. If you do want it to show as points, like the rest of your assignments, for example, you can change this to points, and that is perfectly fine. Okay. So now what I've done is I've made my attendance a 10-point assignment that students will view as points in the gradebook. Now, what you can do is you can say, do not count this assignment towards the final grade. It is recommended that you do this inside of roll call and not on this page. So it is recommended instead that when you're in the roll call tool, you can change your settings up here by clicking on this settings wheel, or cog, excuse me, and say roll call settings. You only have 2 settings to set here. Do not count attendance towards final grade. It is recommended that you check this box here instead of here, although theoretically this should still work if you forget that. Notice that the other setting I have in roll call is lateness counts as what percentage of presence. So how much do I want to give for partial credit for being late? And unfortunately, you only get one. You can't do like 50% if they were late but participated, 25% if they were late and they didn't participate. And unfortunately, it just doesn't allow that kind of flexibility. So you can set one grade for lateness. And definitely I would make sure, I don't know what happens if you try to set this partway through the semester. So definitely ahead of time, make sure that you, and David can chime in if he knows anything about that, but I have not tested that. So try to set this up before you start taking a bunch of attendance. So I'm going to say late is 50% of present. Okay, so I'm back on the assignment settings page where I've set the points. What if you don't want the grade to appear in your gradebook whatsoever? So right now, from a student perspective, this is going to appear in the gradebook, but maybe you don't want it to be graded and maybe you don't want students to even see what their attendance is. This is a permanent option, so you can't really undo this if you change your mind later, but you can change display grade as to not graded. And what that will do when you save is it will just take it right out of the gradebook. But like I said, the Canvas guides warn that it is not reversible. So I'm going to leave it at points. As a general rule, when you have an assignment like this and it's got this external tool selected and it's got like a URL in here, please don't mess with these settings. Unless you set this up from here initially, don't mess with these settings, especially partway through the semester. I've seen that happen and I've seen it cause instructors a lot of grief, and I want to spare you that. So please don't mess with these settings. Yeah, I'm not going to put a due date on there because it doesn't really make sense for it to have a due date because it's attendance. And I'm just going to save. Click the blue button at the bottom. And now when I go to my gradebook over here on the left-hand side, give that a second to load. You will see, here we go, roll call attendance, grade out of 10. Now, what is wrong with this picture? I have roll call attendance set here. I set it out of 10 points. Why the heck does Alice Training Wheels have 100 points out of 10? This is one of the common pitfalls of attendance, and thankfully it is very easy to fix. Like I said earlier, you kind of have to take attendance once in order to get the ball rolling, but if you take attendance like a bunch of times and then you go back and you try to change the grade from, because originally, remember, it was worth 100 points and now it's worth 10, it doesn't update this automatically. So thankfully, if you see a discrepancy here, it's pretty easy to fix. I just need to go and take attendance for everybody. So now if I go back to my attendance and I see, notice that Alice has full credit here. I'm going to, you can take attendance for the same day or you can even do it for the next day. I'm just going to go ahead and mark attendance for everyone. And then I'm going to come back to my grade book. I'm going to refresh and we're going to see what that does. Roll call attendance out of 10. Alice has a 10 out of 10. Bender has a 0 out of 10. Molly has a 5 out of 10. Steve has a 10 out of 10. Excellent. So some notes on that you may have noticed. The point value that you set for attendance is going to be the point value that they will accumulate across the whole semester. So the attendance value is not per class. It is 10 points throughout the entire semester. Attendance is going to be worth a total of 10 points. And notice that Alice, she only got full credit for one class, but she has a 10 out of 10 for the whole semester. So Canvas attendance works the same way that Moodle attendance worked, and I know that this irritated some people, so I want you to be aware of it. It works backwards to the way other assignments in your gradebooks work. In other words, as soon as you take attendance for the first time, that will be someone's attendance grade for the whole semester. So Alice got full credit on one day. She now has full credit on attendance for the whole semester. And then as she misses classes, the grade will start to go down. So notice Molly Training Wheels got half credit on one day of attendance. She now has half credit for her whole attendance grade. You really have to communicate that with students, because I totally understand the situation and the fear that students might be halfway through the semester and see that they're getting 80% on attendance and be like, oh, well, great, I'm just not going to show up for the rest of the semester. Not realizing that if they stop showing up, their grade is going to start to drop. That is a reason that some people don't like using attendance tools. The reason for this is that Canvas doesn't know like how many days of attendance you're going to take. So it kind of just starts with full credit. This is where if you do use this tool, you want to make sure that you communicate very, 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 very clearly that everyone's going to start at full credit and that their grade will drop very quickly if they start missing classes. If I want to hide this grade in the gradebook, I can, if I want to hide it without removing it, I can come up here to the 3 dots on this column. And I'm going to say hide grades. So now students will not be able to see their grade for this assignment. So I'm going to say hide. And that is going to give me, notice this little hidden icon in my gradebook. It's telling me that that grade is hidden. And then later I can go back here and I can post the grades when I'm ready for my students to see it. So you do have control over whether students can see their attendance, which might help mitigate the, oh my God, I'm getting 100% on attendance issue. If you just want to keep it hidden and say, you know, keep attending or whatever, you could do that as well. Okay, we only have about 5 minutes left, and then I'm going to start taking live questions. So again, do not delete, rename, or unpublish the attendance assignment. Okay, so within roll call, let's look at a little bit more about actually taking attendance. So I'm on the attendance page here. There's a couple different ways to take attendance. You can, the easiest way is to mark everyone as present and then individually, let's see, 1, 2, 3 clicks. 3 clicks to make them, oh, sorry, 1 click. Excuse me, I was mixing up unmarked and absent. So if you mark everyone as present and then individually say absent, absent with 1 click, then that might be the fastest way to mark everyone for attendance each day. Again, if you're doing this on like Zoom, you can pull up attendance on your phone if you have a smartphone and take attendance that way. You can set a seating chart. So if I come over here, I'm on the list tab. I can come over here to the class tab. I'm not going to dig too far into this, but just know you have the ability to drag and drop a seating chart for your students if you need to. This might be relevant to students who have, I don't know if you have assigned desks 6 feet apart if you're teaching face-to-face. You can rearrange your Zoom window to be in a certain order. So maybe you want your attendance to mimic the video windows on Zoom, and you can sort of rearrange students and have it stick there. And then you can take attendance from here. I'm on the Edit Seating Chart tab. If I go to the Take Attendance tab, then I can do it by seating chart. If you are a visual person and you want to take attendance based on where people are sitting, that is an option. I'm going to head back to list view over here. To change the day, I notice I have a calendar up here with the little backward and forward arrows. I can either click on the calendar and choose a day, or I can just hit the arrow and that'll take me to the next day. If you have a cross-listed course, so if you have combined multiple sections into one Canvas course, you will only see one section at a time. And so I have an example of this, I believe. Well, in any case, if you choose your section from the drop down, you might have Monday, Wednesday class, Tuesday, Thursday class, or section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. You will be able to choose one section at a time from this drop down menu. If you have a lot of sections, that might be kind of irritating, but it's just part of taking attendance if you have your classes combined or cross-listed. Finally, I want to talk about tags, or sorry, badges. If I hit more over here, so let's say I take attendance for Alice, or I take attendance for everyone, but not for Alice, I'm going to excuse Alice, and I want to remember why I did that. I can come over here to more, and I have the option to add what are called badges. Notice that I can see her overall present, late, absent. I'm going to add a badge, and I'm going to call this death in the family. Excused, death in the family. Okay. You can give it an icon, maybe a star or a comment. You can change the color with these little dots. It's all cosmetic. I'm going to hit Save Badge. So, and then I can assign this badge to Alice on this day. So on this day of January 31st, I don't know why we were having class on a Sunday, but on this day for Alice, she was excused. And I put a note here on a badge that it's because she had a death in the family. Now, some important notes on badges. These will not be seen by students, so these are not a way to comment on attendance for your students. They will not show up on the downloaded attendance report. So if you download your attendance report, it doesn't seem to report on the number of certain badges that you gave. So don't set up this elaborate system of reporting with badges and then you download the report and it's not on there. It has no effect on points. So this is not a way to say you're going to get a little bit less credit for late and not participating versus late and participating. It's really just reminders for you about what was going on with students that day. You could give a badge for every single student for every single class if you wanted to. That sounds really tedious to me, and it doesn't really have any huge effect on anything except for your own notes. And notice that once I added this badge, I can go the next day and I can mark everyone else attended, and I can give Molly, when I hit more, I can give her the same badge. So this has been a grim semester for my students, and I'm assigning the death in the family badge to more than one student so that I can remember why she was excused. You can also do things for like, I'm giving him a late grade, so I'm giving him partial credit, but I'm not doing it because he was late. I'm doing it because add a badge, not participating. Make it yellow, that's all cosmetic. Save badge. So now I remember that the reason Bender got a quote unquote late grade, which I'm using just to give him partial credit, it's because he wasn't participating that day. I know we're a tiny bit over time, so forgive me for that. Just as a note, if you use the partial credit grade for things other than strictly late, your students are going to see this. So they're going to see their number of late days. I would highly recommend in your syllabus or on a separate page where you explain your attendance policy to tell students that you're going to give partial credit for things like not participating, for late or leaving early. That's a really, really, really common one, is that, students leave partway through the class and you're like, well, that's basically the same as arriving late, so you're going to get partial credit. Definitely explain that to students, kind of in the same breath that you explain that their grade is going to drop if they stop attending. definitely explain that late actually means potentially a lot of things. Whatever it is that you want to assign that partial credit for, whether it's not participating or leaving early, etc. Okay, so then we talked about those. We already talked about how to fix an incorrect grade. As a reminder, sometimes your grade might appear incorrectly in the grade book. Just take attendance for everybody again, and that should sort it out. If you struggle with this, let us know and we'd be happy to take a look at it. Speed grader comments, because roll call comes with its own assignment, you'll notice there's a speed grader button on it. And what happens if you use it? Well, you can leave comments for students on speed grader for attendance. And it will, notice in this picture, it shows the date that I left the comment there. Notice students do have to remember to click on this speech bubble icon in their gradebook in order to see it. So this is a good tip in general. If you have not told your students, hey, go to your gradebook, click on these little speech bubbles, that is how you're going to see my comments on your assignments. Students can miss that. We do put it in the student Canvas orientation, but it's always better to hear it come from an instructor. Some final tips, and then I will take questions. Again, for the third time, do not delete, rename, or unpublish the attendance assignment. Any details that you put on the roll call assignment might not be seen by students. So in the assignment description, that might be where you're tempted to put your policies for, hey guys, late is going to be 50%, and late actually means left early, not participating. However, if students look at that page from the gradebook side, they're not going to see that information. So I would recommend putting your late policies, your attendance policies on a separate Canvas page. Maybe even taking that from out of your syllabus and putting it on a separate Canvas page, because students don't really want to dig through an 18-page syllabus just to find your late policy, is what I've been told from expert instructors. They like taking specific pages out of their syllabus and putting them as a Canvas page so that students are sure to read them. And it's easier to reference. You can take attendance on your phone. And I have two guides that I would recommend. They're in this PowerPoint, but I'm going to real quick throw this in the chat as well. I'm sure David has already done this, but I'm just going to redo it. That is going to jump you right down to the roll call attendance guides in the Canvas guides. I do recommend reading these all the way through. It's not super long, and it's all really good information. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them instead of like 50 million. So I do recommend reading through these if you're going to use attendance, and just use these as a reminder. It has pictures, they're user friendly. I like them. And then I also have what is roll call, which is just the introduction to roll call. And that is it. I am open for questions.
I'm doing an online course, and there is no set. I don't have any set day or time for class period. What would you consider being in attendance? Somebody clicking on an assignment, or clicking on anything? And
that is a really great question that I do get asked a lot. Okay. And that would be more of, I don't have like a specific, like, this is what you should do. I would invite you to consider what is the purpose of taking attendance in a fully online class? So I'm assuming if you have Zoom meetings, right, that's a little bit different, right? Because students are actually attending, even if it's virtually. Right. But if it's fully asynchronous, so students are doing it on their own time.
That's me.
What would you consider to be, attendance is really kind of the same thing as participation.
Right.
There's no like one right answer for how to do this. This tool may or may not benefit you for a fully asynchronous class. That's a really good point to make. Yeah. Now, some things you could do, just to speculate, having students take a short, low stakes 3-question quiz at the end of a module. might facilitate the same kind of thing as attendance, or having student complete assignments might facilitate the same kind of thing as attendance. Or
Yeah.
if you use Panopto, you can track whether students have watched the lectures in Panopto. That's kind of like attendance, right? So attendance kind of gets folded into other instructional strategies when you're teaching a fully asynchronous class. And I am not the best one to tell you what those strategies should be, but
Well, I just kind of assume when, if they complete an assignment, submit it, I assume, that's a positive or attendance, but I have seen cases where they've clicked on something, and looked at it, never did anything with it. It's like, okay, why didn't you fill this out and submit it? But
yeah, so you can also get a little bit fancy with it, and I would say, start small with this. If you're interested in using it, you can make it so that certain modules will not unlock for students until they have completed other requirements. So,
yeah.
for example, we do this in the Canvas orientation. Students have to read through a bunch of stuff, which we know perfectly well. They're probably just clicking through as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But then they have to take a 2-question quiz at the end, and they have unlimited attempts. And then once they get 100% on that 2-question quiz, then they can move on to the next module. So
okay.
again, that's kind of just a different way, whereas giving them points for having their butt in a seat is kind of one instructional strategy, right?
Yeah.
Not letting them move on in the course until they have demonstrated some level of participation is another measure of attendance, basically. So if you have questions about setting that up, or you want more ideas, definitely let us know. We're happy to work with you on that.